What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sector for Nerds, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars Retro Discussions. Today we're here to talk about Season 3, Episode 17, Ghost of Mortis. This episode was directed by Stuart Lee and written by Christian Taylor. The cookie for this episode: he who seeks to control fate shall never find peace. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Plenty of great content every single week. You guys definitely don't want to miss out on any of it. Alright, you guys, now without any further ado, if you haven't been watching this series, first of all, highly recommend you check it out, but intro guy, let us know what's been going down in these last couple of episodes. Stranded! Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and his Padawan Ahsoka Tano are caught in the middle of a treacherous battle between good and evil. The scales now tip toward the dark side. All three warriors must guard against attack as they plan their escape. A great weight has been placed on Anakin's shoulders, for it is now that he must face who he really is. Thank you, intro guy. What do you mean who he really is? The ship is completely damaged that our Jedi heroes are supposed to be escaping in. And it's like, all right, well, we ain't getting off world for a little bit. So Anakin's just like, I'm gonna go see the father. Anakin's like, if I don't get the father's blessing to leave, it'll haunt me forever. Wait a second, didn't he just tell you at the end of the last episode that he wanted you all to leave? Are you sure? Are you sure you're sure? Are you sure you're sure you're sure? Ay. What's the father doing? Well, we see the father lay the daughter to rest, along with the blade as well that killed her. And then Anakin goes to confront him, and the father basically says, ask and you will know what to do. Ask who? Ask what? What are you talking about? And then Anakin sees Qui-Gon. I'm like, oh snap, he's back. Qui-Gon reaffirms what he believes about Anakin being the chosen one and that he will bring balance to the Force. But it's so curious because, like, Anakin's sitting there looking for answers. Like, okay, well, what do I do about this son here? Like, do I leave or do I stay and I fight this guy? And Qui-Gon's just like, neither. You'll find another way. Trust your instincts. So that kind of already had me concerned, like, well, what else is there to do? Like, what, you want Anakin to join him? I don't think that's gonna happen. How wrong little 11-year-old me was. I love that Ahsoka fell asleep while working on the ship. The girl's tired. She's been through a lot. And then, like, Obi-Wan brings her some decaf or something. And then Obi-Wan and the father chat. And Obi-Wan's, like, very, like, all right, where's Anakin? And the father's like, look, he came to me for guidance, but now it's up to the will of the Force as far as what he does. Obi-Wan goes, where is he gone? And the father just goes, to the well of the dark side. And at this point, I'm like, man, they're, like, really teasing Anakin to go over to the dark side here. Now, I remember watching like a teaser for this episode, like back in the day on Cartoon Network, that like kind of teased that Anakin was going to see his future. He was going to join the dark side or whatever, because like you hear the son say, he's mine now. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, did he possess him the same way that he did Ahsoka, or like what the hell happened? So like everything leading up to this, I'm kind of like, well, but I know that Anakin's not gonna join the dark side because I have seen Revenge of the Sith at this point, so I know how that story goes. Because I remember I'd said, like, when the Clone Wars started, I didn't watch episode 3, but by the time of like season 2, I had seen episode 3. So yeah, I knew full well what happened in that movie, and like, well, there's no way that Anakin's gonna turn to the dark side here. But then, yeah, the son shows Anakin his future. And then Anakin just like joins the son just like that.
The future, by its nature, can be changed. Join me, and together we will destroy this emperor you see in your visions. Then we shall end war, corruption, and suffering throughout the galaxy. Will we bring peace? Of course.
I remember as a child just being so confused by this, because it's like, what Anakin's on the dark side now? Well, how I don't know how we get out of this. What? Because then Obi-Wan goes to confront him, and Anakin, like, you know, they both arrive in that volcano on speeders, and Anakin just pushes one in the lava, and he says, there's been a change of plans. You won't understand what I have to do to end the Clone War, and you will try to stop me. The son just zaps him with the Force lightning, Obi-Wan that is, and pushes him back. And the minute that Obi-Wan looks up and realizes what's going on, like this for me is like the most heartbreaking Obi-Wan moment in the entire show. And all he says is 2 words.
Anakin, why?
I'm sorry. I have seen that it is the Jedi who will stand in the way of peace.
He's mine now.
And I'm just sat there the whole time with like a shocked look on my face as well, because I'm like, what is happening here? And Anakin's just like, I am sorry, but it is the Jedi who will stand in the way of peace. That's what you took from your visions, buddy? Not the fact that, like, you killed your own wife or were going to kill your own wife. The fact that you killed a bunch of children? That's what you took out of that, was the Jedi were at fault here? All right. So then Obi-Wan has to contact Ahsoka and be like, all right, Ahsoka, we got a problem. Anakin joined the sun. You know, you got to disable the ship right now. And I remember being super scared for Ahsoka in this scene, because I just kept going back to that moment where older Ahsoka said, you may never see your future if you remain a student. So like this entire arc, I was just like set on the idea that Ahsoka was dying. And so I'm like, oh no. And like the way that they shot this too, with like Anakin marching onto the ship as if he was Vader, and like a very like Vader way of walking, and like the dark side music playing in the background. And like Ahsoka, I remember when Ahsoka got off the ship, I'm like, okay, I'm glad she got off, but like, was she able to do anything to the ship? Apparently she did, because she had something in her hand. And when Anakin went to the cockpit, he's like, Ahsoka, what have you done? And she gets away on his speeder. So I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Going back to the sun tempting Anakin to the dark side real quickly, like the dude, like when Anakin first shows up, he's like, you know, we don't have to be enemies. And I don't know why, but that like when I was just watching it now, like it just kind of like weirdly took me back to Family Guy Star Wars when Stewie was telling Luke, like, you know, we can rule the galaxy, you know, just like, you know, 2 dudes just doing it, running the galaxy. Oh my god. Shout out Family Guy Star Wars. I think we got to talk about those at some point on the channel. Those are just funny movies for sure. Well, we're waiting. I love when Ahsoka went to go pick up Obi-Wan out of the cave, and she kind of just like looks down to see like his progress of how far he made it out, and she's like, nice job. And then the son and Anakin have a chat next to the ship, and Anakin's like, I can't make contact with anybody. I don't think anybody's gonna hear my signal out here. And the son brings up, like, my father still has holds over this place, but I'll be able to draw any ship here soon. And Anakin says, if I know my old master, he too will try to stop us. Together with your father, they may be a formidable opponent. And the son goes, I can turn the tide in our favor. Stay here. And I did kind of think to myself, like, what does he turn the tide in our favor? And I'm like, oh, is he going to go get that dagger? And sure enough, like later on, he goes to his sister's tomb. And I did forget for a minute that she had it, but I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I figured he was definitely going to go to get that. I mean, they've put this thing over in like the past episode as well. Like, this is the weapon that can kill these guys, these gods. But meanwhile, like right after the son leaves, the father shows up and talks to Anakin. And he's like, bro, what did he show you? And Anakin's like, I've seen my future. I've seen what I become. I can't let it happen. And there's a quote that the father has here that I really enjoy. He says, your destiny can change just as quickly as the love in one's heart can fade. Nothing is set in stone. Yeah, that's deep, man. And Anakin's just like, but I will cause so much pain. So your method is to go from one Darksider to another. And the father's like, if there's going to be balance here, what you saw in there has got to be forgotten. And he just gives him a little boop on the forehead with 2 fingers, and Anakin passes out. And I'm like, oh, that's how we get out of this. This is legit like one of the crazier episodes when it comes to the story of Anakin Skywalker. The whole idea that like, this guy sees his future, he sees what he becomes, and like he's so afraid of messing up that he ends up messing up. They're back at the monastery. The father tells Anakin, like, I erased whatever thing that my son showed you to break the laws of time. We will never know. And then Obi-Wan and Ahsoka arrive, Obi-Wan being like, are you all right? And Anakin's like, yeah, I think so.
But we must stop the sun once and for all.
We have little time, and you'll get only one chance. You know what you must do.
How quaint. My own personal send-off.
And I do appreciate that the father was still like, look, I ask you one last time, don't leave.
I ask you one last time. Do not leave, my son.
You have no power to keep me, old man.
You must understand by now this planet is not my destiny. What you will do will destroy all that is good. I beg you, restrain yourself and stay.
I cannot.
And then it shall be. I love you, my son.
Do you?
While the son is distracted with the Jedi, the father grabs the dagger off of the son's belt, and he's like, I held hope that you could resist the dark side, but I see now that there is no going back. And he points it at himself. I'm like, he kills himself. And I'm like, wait, what? No, what? Father, why'd you do that? What was that for?
No! What have you done? It did not have to be this way! Yes, my child. It did. You and I are tied together. And your strength runs through me. This way, I take your power.
Which then makes it really weird why the son would have wanted to kill him in the last episode then, because then this one he's like super sympathetic toward him. I felt like that part was kind of weird. Like, unless the son didn't know that, I don't know. Then Anakin, while the son's distracted with his father, just comes from behind and stabs him with the saber. I mean, I figure, now that, the father took all of the son's power, they can get harmed by lightsabers again, of course. And there's this really emotional moment too, where like right before the father dies, and he says, I die, my heart broken, but knowing the role that you will play in all this. And Anakin goes, and what is that?
You are the chosen one. You have brought balance to this world. Stay on this path, and you will do it again for the galaxy. But beware your heart.
And then when the father passes away, he disappears Force Ghost style. So I went, oh, okay, that's interesting. That giant bright light that appears like when we first go to Mortis appears again. And then when they wake up, all three of them are on the ship. The ship is working fine. They're in space. And they're talking with Rex. And he's like, General Skywalker, are you there? Oh, there you are, sir. You were off the scopes there for a moment.
General Skywalker, come in. We read you, Rex? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Standing by. We were worried.
You were off the scopes there for a moment. A moment? We've been gone more than a moment, Rex.
Sir, I don't understand. You'll need to explain.
You wouldn't believe me if I told you. We're coming in now.
So very interesting. This sparked, I feel, a lot of different questions of like, was this meant to be some kind of a dream sequence for them? Like the whole Mortis arc was just like some big crazy dream thing that like the Force called them on this journey specifically to get Anakin to discover that he's the chosen one. Is this a case of like these Force beings were real and that they did bring Anakin there, which seems to be more likely the case. But it is very interesting then. So like if Mortis is a real place, like is it a place that is accessible but in like a different galaxy? Is it outside of like the known universe and just in like this like atmosphere of the Force that like only certain people can get to? It was very Chronicles of Narnia in that sense, where like, how like the kids go into the wardrobe and then they come out and it was like no time had passed. It was the same thing here. It was like that whole time they were in constant communication with Rex, but yet we know that they were doing stuff, the past 3 episodes, there was a lot going on. So what the heck happened? So then like, what would have happened if they would have left, like without the sun stopping them in the second episode? Like what would have, you know what I'm saying? Like, could they have just gotten off world and they get out there and it's like no time had passed? Or was it the idea then that like, since all 3 beings died or whatever, and like the father was saying that Anakin had brought balance to this world, that it like reset things. I don't know. A lot of interesting questions about this episode and just about like the Mortis trilogy as a whole. Now, another interesting thing about this episode, a little bit of behind the scenes, is that originally there was going to be a deleted scene, and Dave Filoni has talked about this, and I've actually seen this before, that there was going to be a scene earlier on in the episode, like before the son tempts Anakin to the dark side, just two dudes running the galaxy, where the son is still mourning the loss of his sister, and he's in the well of the dark side. And there he ends up seeing like these essentially like almost force ghosts of Darth Revan and Darth Bane, which I feel like would have been, a huge deal to see these people. Now, granted, at the time, I probably wouldn't have known much about them, so it wouldn't have meant much to me then. Now, though, obviously, as I know a lot more about them, it's like, oh, damn, that would have been like a really massive deal. And it was a scene that I guess George Lucas liked, but then ultimately decided that I think we should probably pull the plug on this for the sake of like things when it comes to the Force. David mentioned a lot about it. Yeah, I think it makes sense, especially as well, like if they were like some kind of Force ghosts or whatever, like I don't think that would have necessarily made any sense because the Sith aren't supposed to do that. The Jedi were able to achieve, right? You hear Obi-Wan say in A New Hope to Vader, if you strike me down, I shall become far more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And then like Yoda has to go through this whole training, as we see later on in the Clone Wars, to learn how to maintain his conscience after death. And he even mentions at the end, like there is a path for us, one that the Sith don't understand or the Sith can't do.
Through this path, victory we may yet find. Not victory in the Clone Wars, but victory for all time.
We do then end up seeing apparition of Darth Bane later. We can get into that as like the Clone Wars goes on. So I don't know, man. Like it definitely would have been cool. Don't get me wrong. But I think like at the time, perhaps it was the best decision to not involve them in this. And that concludes the Mortis arc, you guys. Man, like I said, we just got done talking about two back-to-back banger arcs in the Clone Wars. Next week, you guys, we're going to make it 3 in a row as far as banger arcs, as we're going to start talking about part 1 of the Citadel arc. That's going to wrap us up for today, you guys. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel. And I will see you guys next time.
This is Central Command. Please identify yourself.
This is Shuttle 81572, requesting access to Citadel Prison.
Make sure every part of that ship is scanned for life forms.
Yes, Commander.
Make no mistake, the Jedi will be coming for their imprisoned brother. They're not about to let one of their own be tortured in the handing over information that will help the Separatists win the war.